Hello everyone and welcome to the latest edition of CX Conversations. I'm Matt Simpson, I'm the Managing Director at Candyspace, and today we are talking digital transformation in B2B, how to make a success of it, what are some of the challenges and hurdles that you might come across, and it's something very pertinent to Candyspace. So we've been working with Rolls-Royce, with Collins Aerospace, with CFM Engines in the manufacturing space, with Apollo Tyres and OMI in automotive, businesses like SAP and Dell in the tech space. And I'm really happy to say we have, I'm going to call you a guru, Leo, a digital transformation in B2B guru with us today, Leo Pickford. Leo, hi.
Matt, you're too kind. It's a real honour to be here. So yes, brilliant. Thank you, Matt. So
that's all right, but maybe you could just give us a bit of background on your career in digital.
So the digital piece was completely accidental because, believe it or not, I was a mechanical engineer originally, but yeah, fell into digital when I realised that the world is full of people working in their silos, and then all of a sudden there's this technology out there, this whole suite of technology that can connect them together, and make things a lot easier. Make business, I think the wheels of business turn in a more logical and connected way. And I think, you know, I'm not going to bore you with my career, Matt, but you know, I've worked for AstraZeneca, Ford Motor Company, Rolls-Royce, Eastern Logistics, so a number of large global organisations. And everywhere I've gone, I've found a niche really, sort of sitting between IT and the business and spotting the way to connect the two together, because they don't speak the same language, right? That's just the first thing to say. They just don't. They like to think they do sometimes, but you know, it's brilliant sitting on the, you know, on the fence, looking at IT with all the wonderful gadgetry, you know, and all the increasing state of the art in terms of what we can do digitally, and then looking at the business with all the problems that they're trying to overcome, and be able to actually say, well, look at what we can do with digital when we really understand the business process and what optimum business process looks like, and then we can take our digital tools and we can apply them, and so it really excites me when we can do that and make a success of it.
That's a great point, and I'm going to come back to that. Can I just take a step back firstly? Like, how do you define digital transformation in your roles?
Well, I think that's a great question, Matt. I mean, we can do digital transformation in a big sense, you know, where we take huge organizations and we disruptively change them, and completely transform the way they operate. Or we can do quite small digital projects. Yeah, both you could say are digital transformation. But really, to me, it's taking something that, you know, you could be already using digital tools. You could be doing something on a spreadsheet. Yeah, but that's not really digital. So I think when you digitally transform, you're actually looking at people, process, tools. You're looking at the whole end-to-end flow and saying, how do we do this better? And how do we use digital technology to optimize?
I think it's important that you highlighted the word people there. I think it's easy with digital transformation to think it's simply about the technology, but yeah, I noticed people was the first thing in your list there.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. It's always about people, and I think that's really where the whole sort of digitalization concept took off. You know, we went from our old sort of view of IT to digitalization as a concept, and people's right at the core of that. You know, it's not use this piece of software. It's right. You know, how are you today? What are you trying to achieve? What's stopping you being as productive as you can be? And how can digital tools help you achieve what you want to? And so absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so let's come back to that important point you made at the outset. So how can you ensure that there's alignment between your digital transformation initiatives and the broader business goals, and, as you say, that difference between where IT is sitting and the business is sitting?
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of big organizations go wrong, actually. They set out with a massive ambition to do this huge transformation, and they put millions aside, all the resources and so on. And I think they quickly go wrong when they realize that that's going to have an impact on their day-to-day operation. They can't just stop the business to deliver this project. Yeah. And I've just seen it time and time again through my career, where they have this moment, they get partly into their project and they go, oh, we can't do a project this big, or a massive transformation, and keep the business going. And so really the way to align things is, depending on the type of program, is you actually pick a chunk of transformation and align it to what you're delivering that year in your business plan. So, for instance, you might have won some new business. Okay, let's onboard the new business onto your new digital platform. Yeah. So in that way, you're harnessing the energy in the new platform that you're building, whilst onboarding the new customer onto it. Yeah. So just an example of where you can align something between business as usual and the new project.
So it's not trying to sort of boil the ocean. It's
exactly that.
Specific things that you can piggyback on almost in terms of that transformation and build from there.
Yeah, precisely that.
Okay. What other challenges have you faced, or B2B businesses face in general when it comes to delivering and executing on digital transformation?
I think some of the biggest challenges tend to be cultural. So, you can have the best plan in the world. You can spend hours in your war room, with some really clever people planning everything to the nth degree. You've got all your plans up on the wall. You've got every step of the process all laid out. Yeah. And then as soon as you start out on that journey, you've got all the people that react in different ways. It's going to threaten my way of working. It might threaten my job. It might move, who's moved my cheese? If you've read your business change books. So I think, some of the cultural and change considerations are things that people often overlook. And so it's very important, again, it's people, isn't it, Matt? It's, engaging people early. And so the project isn't this thing in a room over to the side. It's actually got to be out in the open. And it's got to be a conversation with the people that are going to be living and breathing it. And they've got to be engaged from quite early on.
And how do you do that? How do you create that sort of culture of change, culture of innovation, and bring the people along?
Well, it's very easy for me to say it. I think having been through a number of transformation programs, I've seen it go very wrong many times. I've seen it go right many times as well. I always think the best way to do it is to do things on a small scale first. Yeah, and show what the benefits are of moving in the right direction. Yeah, so you set your vision out, you show where you want to go, and then you take a small step in that direction, where you take people along on that journey. So you demystify it, and you show the people that are going to be living and breathing it that it isn't so bad. And I think once you get them on board, suddenly you've got 50 or 100 friends rather than people trying to resist.
That warms my heart that you're just making 50 to 100 friends as you go about this.
Well, it might be 2 friends. I don't know. Depends how big the organization is.
Well, you mentioned that you've had some successes and some instances where it's been more challenging. Are you able to share some of the successes that you've had and sort of what you felt was instrumental in those successes?
Yeah, I think the probably the one I like to talk about the most actually is whilst there was at Rolls-Royce, I think there was a culture that I have to say people didn't understand user experience, and they didn't understand the importance of the user. So I was in a role where I was the exec for the customer portal. So I was in charge of the whole portal that all the customers logged onto from around the world if they managed their aero engines. But when they logged on, what they effectively saw was a PDF store, so they could look at drawings or parts or various information about their engine. But it's very two-dimensional. It wasn't interactive. I quickly decided that what they needed was something that was more of a user experience. But if you talked about user experience to anyone in that environment, they'd look at you like you were an alien. And that was not a reflection on those individuals. They just hadn't met that environment. So it was quite a journey to go through bringing that thinking into that business. By the end of that journey, I think I was quite proud to say that a couple of years down the line, everybody got it, but it took some time and it was a bumpy road.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm interested that you talked very much about the user experience there, because I think it's sometimes easy in digital transformation to become very internally focused and forget about the end users or the customers. So how important do you see the role of ensuring that you're improving the experience for customers as part of digital transformation initiatives?
Well, I think it's essential to place the customer at the heart of what you're doing, because at the end of the day, the customer pays the bill. You want their continued business and their loyalty, and so they need to have a good digital experience. They need to keep coming back, enjoy using the products, and enjoy interacting with whatever channel, whether it's desktop, tablet, mobile, or whatever. And that it's the same in B2C or B2B or whatever context that you're talking about. I think the important thing is having the feedback loop. So if a user has enjoyed using something, they probably won't tell you. If they haven't enjoyed using it, they still might not tell you. They might just swear and never use it again. So whether it was a good or a bad experience, I think having that loop so that you get the feedback is absolutely key. And thinking that from the outset, having a reference group of users or some friendly test users that you can use to test the prototype or whatever.
For sure. And that brings me on to my next question. Actually, I was going to talk to you about measurement. Like, how can you measure the impact, the success of your digital transformation efforts?
Well, I think there's two types of measure, for sure, Matt. So one of them is it's a sort of hard measures. So, what's the efficiency improvement? What's the cost saving? What's the accuracy of the data? Yeah, through the digitalization, have you got better data quality, for instance? So those to me are very much your hard measures, and you can KPI them, you can dashboard them, or whatever. And that's all well and good. You're running a business, you want to improve those measures. And digitalization should always bring about an improvement in the hard efficiency measures. I think the other side is the softer measures. So we've talked about the feedback from customers. So you talk about Net Promoter Score. What sort of repeat usage are you getting from digital channels? Are customers enjoying their digital experience. So that softer measure is key. But I think the other soft measure is the employee enjoyment. So, you know, when you come to work, yeah, is it a case of swearing at your computer, or, you know, are you actually quite enjoying it? Yeah, I mean, I've lost count of the number of times that even in 2024, I know people going into work and are having to rekey information between systems, copy and paste it out of a spreadsheet into an email, send it to Bob over there, who then pastes it into another system. Oh, that one's due an upgrade next year. I'm thinking it's 2024, you know, and we're still kind of in this, you know, probably 20 years ago IT environment. I think digitalization's got a long way to go in many places. So we mustn't forget our employees as well.
You did mention that not all of your initiatives have been a success. I guess without naming names, are there any lessons that you've learned from things that haven't quite worked as well as you hoped?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is not having spent enough time on getting people bought into the vision. That time and time again is, you know, if you look at the ones that haven't worked, that's the biggest lesson. It's got to be. Yeah. So you think you've got enough people on board, you go on down the road and you get to a critical point and somebody's trying to take us off in a different direction, you know, or you know, not quite there, and you think, oh, if only you spent a bit more time 3 months ago or 6 months ago getting them over the line, they'd be a massive supporter. Instead, they're dragging us back into the mire again. So I think, you know, of all the things in that space, that's probably the biggest one.
I can appreciate that must be a tough job in complex organizations with multiple internal and external stakeholders. Like, how do you go about selling that vision?
It's tough. So you've got to be absolutely convinced that it's the right thing. Yeah. So you've got to, I think, as Stephen Covey said in his 7 Habits, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And it's one that I really try to live by. So you've got to put a lot of effort yourself into understanding. You know, understand the business, understand everything about, you know, where you are, how it works, where you're trying to go, and why. Keep asking why. And I think once you understand, and once you're convinced that you're going in the right direction, and you understand why you're heading that way, makes it a heck of a lot easier to then convince other people. You've got to spend a lot of time on yourself, then you've got to spend a lot of time on convincing others. And there's always that last one that you've got to spend a bit more time with. And that's probably the, you know, late in the evening over a beer maybe, or just, you know, you're almost sort of banging your head on the wall, going, why don't they get it yet? You know, and you still got to keep making the effort to get them over the line. Try different approaches. You still need to get that last stakeholder on board.
For sure, that's great advice. Yeah, that's great advice. I'm sort of duty bound. We did mention earlier that digital transformation isn't just about technology, but of course it is also about technology. And I'm duty bound, as is every conversation that anyone has in 2024, to talk about AI, but not just specifically AI, in terms of the adoption of new technologies, whether it's AI or blockchain or IoT. Like, how does that inform the way you go about your digital transformation initiatives?
Great question, Matt. I think there's so many emerging technologies, aren't there at the moment? AI is the big one at the moment. I've always said with anything like you know, blockchain or digital twins, or, you know, whatever flavor of the month or flavor of the year is, there's always a huge wave of hype. Yeah, massive wave of hype around a new technology. I have always said, wait for the hype to die down, learn as much as you can about the technology, about its applications, about its limitations, about about where it's good to use it, where it's not so good to use it. Make sure above all else, you don't take the technology and then try and find where to use it. That's the worst thing, to take a technology, go around looking for where to apply it. I've had lots of people coming to me trying to say, I've got, what's the latest one, process automation. Where can I apply it? Yeah. And I think, trying to avoid that temptation to just go and apply a technology, best thing to do is learn about technology and keep abreast of the latest developments. At the same time, understand where the problems are in the business. And I think the natural matchmaking will happen over time. That's always been my advice. So rather than trying to force it, just let the two sides naturally come together and do the facilitation.
Makes sense. And final question from me. So what advice would you give, given your experience, to other B2B companies who are embarking on their own digital transformation journey?
So I think I may have touched on some of this, but I think don't try to do too much too quickly. So you're not going to have the mega program that's going to do all this within a short space of time and invest this much money, and it's all going to happen by then. I think work on the vision, work on the stakeholder alignments, and work on the the direction. That's absolutely crucial. Better to have a number of small scale pilots which then grow. Yeah, so test things at a small scale. If you see them working, then have a plan to scale them up and accelerate them. So many programs go wrong when they set out to be this great big transformation, and they end up, particularly in big companies, wasting huge amounts of money and delivering very little. So that would be my advice.
That is very solid advice. Leo, thanks so much. I could carry on talking to you about this all day. It's a fascinating topic, but I really appreciate all your thoughts and insights there. That's really helpful to anyone embarking on this or in the midst of this in their own businesses. So thanks once again, Leo.
It's been very enjoyable.
And thanks everyone for listening. Bye.